Hello and welcome to FTW Philly, presented by Temple University. I'm Marissa Magnata, joined for the first time in 2021 by my co-host, Rosemary Necra Kelly. Happy New Year to ya!
Happy New Year to you, Marissa. I'm so excited to be back, and I can't wait to kick off this episode of FTW Philly.
Yeah, me too. For everyone who got new consoles this holiday season, we have a segment that's going to tell you which is the perfect game for you. Plus, women in esports, and there was a lot of money to be had this past year. Why don't you tell us all about it?
Thank you so much, Marissa. Before we get into the meat of the esports news segment, let's take a look back on the year of 2020 and the two most viewed esports events of the entire year. Obviously, at the top, we have to talk about League of Legends Worlds. With over 139 million hours watched and 3,882,000 concurrent viewers at its peak, that's a lot of people and a lot of hours watched for that particular show. Coming in second, we've got IEM Katowice in 2020, where we had 18 million hours watched and a 1 million concurrent peak. So for League of Legends and CSGO, they both did pretty well this year. Now that we've taken a look at some of the top esports events watched in 2020, let's take a look at how League of Legends and CSGO stack up to the rest of the esports for top prize money awarded. The Esports Observer put together a top 10 list of all of the top esports by total winnings, and we're going to kick it off with the top 5. In the top 5 spots, we've got CSGO, Dota 2, League of Legends, Fortnite, and Call of Duty Modern Warfare. But there's one thing that might surprise you about this top 5. While Counter-Strike tops the list at $14.75 million, this is actually a little bit of a downsize from the year 2019, but still is almost double what Dota 2 has come up with for their prize pools. But the rest of the list really shouldn't surprise you, given that we've talked about some of the prize pools of the massive tournaments at the end of the year that some of these titles have had in previous episodes of For the Win Philly. Moving down the list into our bottom 5, we have a couple of new contenders this time around. Rocket League coming in 10th place at $2.63 million. This is the first time that Rocket League has been in the top 10 list for the Esports Observer. This is also after Psyonix has committed $4.5 million to the most recent Rocket League Championship Series season, which is going to conclude this year. Another new contender to the list is Hearthstone, and this is also after seeing a little bit of competition from Riot's game Legends of Runeterra, another card game much like that of Hearthstone. But another Blizzard Activision title that has made this top 10 list is Overwatch, coming in at $4.36 million. This is a combination of prize pools coming in from the Overwatch League, as well as Overwatch's Path to Pro Contenders series. Lots of incredible prize pools to look at for this list, and if you were looking at getting into esports this year, this might give you a really good idea of what titles to keep your eyes on. That's it for the esports headlines. Still to come, we've got Darth Mike bringing you all of the latest in gaming news and field of view, where we take a closer look at what makes those Zelda characters Zelda.
Welcome to Field of View with Nerd Street Gamers, your weekly dose of gaming news. I'm Darth Mike, and I've been chased by bokoblins around these lost woods for the last few hours. In addition to Kurok seeds, I found a whole bunch of news stories, so let's get into it. Now, it's been getting a little lonely here in the Lost Woods, but I've just fortunately found out I can make some friends, specifically with memes. It turns out the NPCs in Breath of the Wild are actually just advanced versions of the Wii meme creator. That means that with a little bit of modding and a little bit of code injection, you can actually replace the faceplates for NPCs in the game with your memes. That's a crazy concept here, and we only know about this because of Twitter account Hey I'm Heroic, who published this information, and it spread around the web like wildfire. It's such a creative idea and such a brilliant application of code that you would never really think of connecting in other circumstances. But it does mean that now you can bring in characters from Wii Sports, characters from Wii Resorts, whatever monstrosity you and your friends spend an afternoon one summer making and laughing on a couch can now join you in Breath of the Wild and accompany Link on an epic adventure to save the world and the princess at the same time. Got some good news for all you folks out there. We've got a release date and a new trailer for The Binding of Isaac Repentance. The newest expansion and final expansion to the Binding of Isaac game is being pitched as a full sequel-length expansion, so that's a whole lot of new content coming into the game itself. Now, the trailer didn't give much away, apart from the fact that it was creepy and deeply unsettling, as you'd expect from anything coming from this property. It had a lot of hints and nods back at previous content in the games, and apparently quite a few teasers about stuff that's yet to come. This is all according to the creator of the game, Edmund McMillan, who said that if you have 340 IQ, you might be able to spot some of the hints for future stuff. Now, the game itself does release on March 31st. It's going to cost $15, and based on how good the game already is, it's absolutely going to be worth it. So mark your calendars, get out your wallets, and get ready for more Binding of Isaac action. It's leak season in Valorant land, and we've just landed a big one. The new agent coming to Valorant, Agent 14, apparently named Yoru. Now, we have this according to a Russian leaker who has published a video on YouTube, and there's a lot of information to unpack here. In appearance, he looks like a Japanese vampire, motorcycler, bad boy general type, but the abilities are really where it gets intriguing. He has the ability to create dummy footsteps that then travel in a direction, and he can even delay their triggering to confuse enemies and draw rotations. He's got a flashbang that needs to bounce off of a surface, whether it be a wall, floor, roof, what have you, before detonating and blinding foes. He's got a totem that he can send out or place stationary and then teleport to. And the ultimate ability here makes him invisible and invulnerable as he repositions around the map. Can't shoot while you're in it, but full stealth while you move. Now, this is all intriguing and gives us a lot to unpack. We assume that the Riot official announcement is going to be coming shortly, but in the meantime, there's a lot to get the imagination going when it comes to Yoru. According to a 10-year study published in the Journal for Cyberpsychology, Behavior, and Social Networking, no link was found between playing violent video games as an adolescent and violent behavior later in life. This gives scientific credence to what gamers have known for a very long time, but for what much of the world has disputed. We've had parents, teachers, politicians, ministers all trying to say that video games are corrupting the youth, when it turns out there's no actual scientific basis for that fact. Violent games are no different from other forms of violent media, be they a war movie, a TV show about gangsters, or, a heroic ballad about, say, the Trojan War. Homer much? Humans have been consuming violent media for centuries at this point, but we can separate fiction from reality. It doesn't have to be brought over into our actual life. So the next time someone does something to get themselves in the news, maybe don't go to blame the video games immediately. Try and figure out what else might be to blame. Well, that's it for us this week on Field of View with Nerd Street Gamers, your weekly dose of gaming news. Now, does anyone hear that music? I think I hear music coming from deeper in the woods. I'm just gonna go check that out.
So interesting to hear about how those Zelda characters got created. Marissa, have you ever played a Zelda game before?
Oh, can I confide something in you? When I was young, I erased my brother's entire Zelda tour. So I've stayed away from the game ever since. I felt so bad.
Oh, well, Marissa, you might want to go back to Zelda and try it out as one of the incredible genres that is coming up in our next segment, where we introduce a ton of different games to you to help you find the perfect genre of game to play.
Video games are some of the most popular forms of entertainment. From epic adventures and AAA titles to simulators, puzzles, and party games, there has never been more content for gamers to enjoy. While video games are forms of entertainment like TV shows, movies, and books, what separates video games is how immersive they are. As the player, you don't just witness the story, you are the story. But with so many options available, finding the perfect game can be a daunting task. Let's take a look at some of the most popular titles, genres, and gaming platforms so you can find the right game for you. If you're a fan of epic adventures, rich stories, and fantastical worlds, you'll love role-playing games. RPGs put you at the center of the story, making you the hero of hours of single or multiplayer content. Slay beasts, rescue victims, and choose your own path as Geralt of Rivia in the Witcher series. As the hero Link in The Legend of Zelda, you can save the princess, defeat darkness, and show every clay pot who's boss. Or take to the stars as Commander Shepard and save the galaxy from mechanical beings known as Reavers in Mass Effect. You just threw the game-winning touchdown, scored the equalizer in stoppage time, and hit that 3-point buzzer beater. There's nothing you can't do. Okay, so you're not a world-class athlete, but with sports games you can be. Games like NBA 2K, FIFA, and Madden offer updated rosters, split-screen and online multiplayer to feed your competitive side, as well as single-player franchise modes for the hardcore fans. If you're looking for a little more high-octane, try Rocket League. It's like soccer, but with rocket-powered cars, and it's now free for everyone. At the end of the day, if you like sports, there's a game for you. Tactical minds will love the complexity, creativity, and endless possibility of strategy games. These games test your intellect as you attempt to outmaneuver your opponent to claim victory. Control vast armies, forge alliances, and claim your rightful place as ruler of medieval Europe in Crusader Kings. Choose your own terms of victory as you develop an early settlement into the world's leading superpower in Civilization. Explore the stars, overcome robotic uprisings, and build your species into a galactic juggernaut in Stellaris. Quite possibly the most mainstream genre is shooters. This genre includes first-person and third-person options, such as Call of Duty and Fortnite. First-person shooters drop you right into the action, showing the world from the character's perspective, while in third-person shooters, your perspective is from over the shoulder of your character. Oftentimes, third-person shooters allow an element of customization to your avatar, which can add a bit of flair to your experience. This genre has some of the most popular competitive scenes because of the online multiplayer features as well as in-person tournaments. Your options don't stop there. If you're looking for a more relaxed atmosphere, simulators are a great way to experience traveling the world, like in Flight Simulator, tending to your crops in Farming Simulator, or even being a goat. If you still haven't found a fit, don't worry. There are countless other genres available, like horror, puzzle, action, mystery, and more. There's no right way to play video games. PCs and consoles offer phenomenal graphics, platform exclusives, and immersive experiences, but even they aren't your only options. How you game should align with your interests and lifestyle. For those on the go, mobile gaming is a great choice, and you no longer have to choose between purchasing a console or missing out on the most popular games. Big-name titles such as Fortnite, PlayerUnknown's Battleground, FIFA, and Mortal Kombat are all available in mobile versions. Party games like the Jackbox Party Pack combine mobile and console gaming to create a fun, relaxed environment, whether you're in person or hanging out virtually. If you're looking to optimize your gaming experience, consider purchasing or building a gaming PC. While generally more expensive than consoles, PC gaming is fully customizable and offers you the best performance. For those looking for the most immersive experience, virtual reality headsets such as the Oculus Go, Quest, and HTC's Vive Cosmos can literally put you in the game. With AAA VR titles like Half-Life Alyx being released, VR really is a new, exciting step toward the future of gaming. Obviously, we've only touched on a few examples. Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo, and Steam all have game libraries with thousands of options for you to explore, a good number of which are free to play. Try some. Discover what you like. We are sure you'll be able to find the right game for you.
So Marissa, maybe not Zelda per se, but after watching that segment, are there any game genres that jump out at you?
Oh yeah, I mean, it all started with Super Mario Brothers. 1 and 3, we do not talk about 2. That was just terrible. Puzzle games, I mean, you put me and Tetris in a room together and I could play it for hours. Even Snood, I used to have dreams about those little faces jumping in the tiles and everything. Oh, it's terrible. And then Jackbox has really been a savior for my friends and I, especially through quarantine. We'll play all night long over Zoom and it gets pretty wild.
Oh, that's so awesome to hear. Playing video games is always such a great way to bring everybody together. In fact, I even started out playing video games because my brother brought me along for the ride.
Me too. My brother got Nintendo for Christmas and that was then and here we are now. It's how it all started.
That's amazing to hear. And I feel like that's a similar story for a lot of women in video games, maybe having a brother or a father introduce them into the gaming industry, especially because video games are mostly geared towards men. But did you know that almost 50% of the player base for video games is women?
Yeah, and there's a female company that is really changing the game when it comes to that.
As a producer for FTW Philly for 2 seasons, I've been able to share a lot of unique stories within the video game industry. It's no longer a surprise to me when somebody tells me that it's a $174 billion industry. However, what's stuck as surprising is that 46% of gamers are female. That's half. And when I was growing up, people told me that video games were for boys. Looking for the evolution of female characters, going from one-note descriptions like damsels in distress and prizes at the end of a game, to protagonists who can carry their own game, have amazing backstories, and their own minds, it's quite refreshing. For this segment, I was given the opportunity to speak with 2 game creators. Not only are they women, but they are 2 women of color running their own game studio. Glow Up.
As Mithu likes to say, we were brunch buddies, drinking buddies, cocktail buddies. We had been friends for a long time. I used to write about games on the internet, and she would read that. And Mithu was like, hey, let's start a game studio. And I was like, I don't know, what are you talking about? What are we gonna do with this? So the word got out that Mithu and I were talking about making a new studio. That we hadn't done anything yet. So we were like, oh my God, okay. Let's figure this out.
Glow Up Games is, as far as we know, the first all-women of color founded game studio. Ultimately for us, it's about building games from the ground up that tell our stories and represent us.
The perception in the industry is still very much that these type of people don't play. Women aren't interested in games that have depth or that are difficult or that are hard to control.
Hold up.
There's this immediate link that women are not real players and we're not serious.
But aren't half of all gamers female?
Yeah.
Huh. What LaToya said stuck with me. It's 2020 and the concept that video games are for boys seems to still be here, or at least traces of it. So I decided to take a deeper dive into women representation within and around the video game industry. Honestly, there was so much. So to start breaking it down, I decided to ask a question for some odd reason I never asked before. Why was it a boys thing to begin with?
I often say that video games were not made for women and people of color because there are a few things happening, right? I think about the content that is produced and then what we receive and what we consume. So those things are created from a particular perspective, the male gaze, which is why, we have so many stereotypical representations of people of color, so many hypersexualized representations of women, because it's often filtered through men's fantasies. So these folks and these entities are still operating along the lines that men are the ideal consumer, men are the ones that we're going to target, men are the ones that have the buying power, men are the ones that make the decisions.
Video games started as a group activity in the 70s. And when the first consoles came out, it was actually marketed to the whole family. By the 90s, it was clear that boys became the main domain of video games, through all the marketing ads and the types of games that were on the shelves. There was a heavy lean towards male protagonists and high levels of hypersexualizations of female characters. Boys became the target audience.
I had this realization that, hold on, I have played as, so many characters that don't look like me. Often white men with dark hair is the default. And I had no issue of empathizing with those characters, right? But then I realized hold on, nobody's being asked to empathize with someone who looks like me. Why can't it be true the other way around? The game's playing audience is already incredibly diverse. So why aren't we recognizing that?
Having a female protagonist as of 2015 was still seen as a risk and not a marketable option by itself.
In the minds of these ad executives who are still the same ad executives from the 70s, you have to remember these people, they haven't gone anywhere. They want the thing that sells, right? So the hypersexualized content, makes money. The stereotypical loud, boisterous black dude. They want to see those kind of characters. And when you break away from that, it disrupts the roads that have been paved before, right?
Games funding is very small and it's very kind of clubby. And so to them, they're well, I don't know if this is going to work because we've never seen this work before. But that's how stuff gets stuck.
So let's talk numbers. Mithu and LaToya are creating a mobile game featuring a woman of color protagonist. Mobile gaming is an $86.3 billion share of the video game industry. That's a pretty big chunk. And of mobile gamers, 63% are women. They are also more likely to spend than men on both downloads and in-app purchases. But even with those numbers, men are still the focus. Looking at the top games on Google Play, app icons are more likely to feature a male character than a female one. So is it the numbers, or is it the perception of how women play video games that is a limiting factor of what games get created?
There was sort of this perception that if we want to market to women and girls, we have to think about productive ways to play. We have to play into the stereotypes of what women and girls might want. Women are expected to do something with their nothing with their video game play in these short snippets of time, and men are expected to play games in whatever capacity they can.
There's this assumption that women were all casual players, which is simply not true. I used to go to a lot of LAN parties. I was in a Counter-Strike clan, but women are often forced out of the space in ways both explicit and implicit, told that it's not a space for them.
There are a lot of barriers, and we don't account for the structural things in the STEM fields. There's a leaky pipe where the culture is very sexist and racist, where it's not a place that's welcoming to women and to people of color.
There needs to be a shift at the top in terms of people bringing and promoting and supporting diverse talent when it comes to their doors and not letting it rain back out. There needs to be an openness to what gaming could be.
If you look at sort of who understands the need to tell diverse stories, often those are, folks from diverse backgrounds themselves, and often those are people who, are not already games investors, because the picture of who is normally games investors are people who've come up through the games industry. And as we've talked about, there's a huge ecosystem problem. It's a systemic problem, honestly, in terms of just who's in the space, who's getting funded in the space.
You have the games, you have the gamers, you have the gaming culture, the industry that's around it, right? But I think we all have to just think about where we are and what we can influence personally. But I think until that happens, we just have to keep advocating, and we have to, keep fighting and working. So the industry can be it can reflect who we are, it can reflect our values, and it can look like people like us.
This fight for representation is a big topic, and I feel like I barely scratched the surface. As video games are becoming a big part of the media, the industry needs to be more aware of their impact on representation. That is not to say we haven't seen progress. Sony and Guerrilla Games took the risk with Horizon Zero Dawn, and through focus group testing, proved that having a female protagonist is not a problem. People can still relate. It is now one of the top 10 selling games on PlayStation 4, selling well over 10 million copies. Indie game companies are reaching more potential gamers by changing what characters get to be on screen and expanding on the possibility of what a game can be. Women have begun to get recognition in the esports arena. But with all these successes, we must remind ourselves that we still have a ways to go.
My fight for better representation within the games industry, both on screen and what's behind the scenes, is not just about myself. It's about everybody that isn't being represented in games. Because I love games, and that's what it comes back to. I love games. I love making games, playing games. Games are already great, but I know they could be even better.
How inspiring to hear about these women of Glow Up.
Yes, the powerful women of Glow Up, we salute you. Thank you for all that you're doing. Well, thank you for another great episode. I'm going to sign off here for Necker Kelly and the whole crew behind FTW Philly, presented by Temple University. I'm your host, Marissa Magnata, and we'll see you next week.